What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rosie TV. This is Safe here, and today I'm going to discuss something a little bit different. We're going to talk about Paul Pogba and the whole Manchester United Mourinho situation that is currently going on. Right now there's the international break, so I decided that this is probably the best time to talk about it because there's not that many big things going on. So let's just go straight into it. There's a lot of reports saying that Paul Pogba will probably be sold in the summer. Him and Mourinho have had a lot of problems. And ever since coming to Manchester United, Paul Pogba never looked too comfortable. He was kind of played out of position most times. With Mourinho, he loves that 4-2-3-1 formation. And he's been playing Pogba in that defensive midfield zone, that defensive midfield position. And it really hasn't worked out, even though Pogba's still putting up some great numbers and he's been a fantastic player. We're not really seeing the best of him, which I think is the big problem here. Because if you're going to spend that much money on a player, obviously when they brought him in, they broke the record for the transfer fee. Them doing that is kind of showing that this is going to be our talisman. And he was, you know, putting up some great numbers at Juventus, and he kind of played a different role at Juve. He played in a midfield three. He played both in a 3-5-2 and a 4-4-2 diamond formation under Allegri. So in that 3-5-2, especially during his last season, he was playing alongside Vidal, and he's playing alongside Claudio Marchisio. Sometimes Pirlo would be in there. And then being that 4-4-2 diamond, sometimes he would play at that tip of the diamond behind the two strikers, but I felt like he was best, you know, playing as a left central midfielder, which he hasn't been doing for Manchester United. The type of player Pogba is not really the type of player Mourinho kind of wants. I mean, he wants that central defensive midfielder to sit right alongside Matic and to kind of dictate play. But Pogba's not that kind of player. Pogba's that explosive player who is very ambitious, wants to take players on. So I don't really understand Mourinho and his stubbornness. And Mourinho just the past few months has been, I don't know what it is. I don't want to say he expired as a manager, because sometimes, you know, the times get to you and maybe it's time to move on, maybe go to international management or maybe even retire. And, you know, Mourinho is one of the best of all time, so it hurts to say that, but it might just be true. Mourinho has just been extremely stubborn with Pogba, and he's even dropped him for some of the games and has opted for McTominay, who's one of the youth players. So you're going to drop arguably your best player, kind of questionable there. But I'm looking at it and I'm seeing, how do we solve this situation with Mourinho? I'm going to start looking at maybe replacements for Pogba if he's just not going to work in this system, or bringing in another player alongside Pogba to kind of unlock him. Just looking at some replacements, they've been heavily linked with Arturo Vidal, and Vidal for me wouldn't be the best replacement because he is over 30 years old, and he's that box-to-box player. He's not that deep-lying playmaker that Mourinho, I think, is looking for. They already have a defensive player in Matic, so they need somebody to kind of open up play right next to him, which I don't think is Vidal. However, bringing in Vidal possibly in a midfield three alongside Pogba could definitely help, but like I said, I think it's a short-sighted approach because Vidal is already over 30. But looking at some of the replacements that I looked into, one of them that might not be super realistic, but I think would be a perfect replacement, is Marco Verratti. And Marco Verratti for me is one of my favorite players in world football. He's just a different type of player. I feel like he's like Pirlo on steroids. He is very good defensively, and he can sit right in front of a defense and dictate play, has wonderful vision, can pick out anybody on the pitch with his amazing through balls and his long passing. I feel like he would be the perfect replacement, but not only would he be a perfect replacement, with all these people that I looked at, these players could also just be put alongside Pogba and Matic in a midfield three. But that obviously depends on Mourinho and his stubbornness and, you know, him wanting to change up the formation. You've already kind of seen it this season. We've seen him play a midfield 3, but I think it's time to permanently change it to a midfield 3 instead of playing 2 defensive midfielders and 1 number 10, which this season we've kind of seen Juan Mata in that position. We've seen Jesse Lingard. I feel like a midfield 3 would suit Manchester United the best and would bring the best out of Pogba. And Verratti, for me, like I said, not a very realistic transfer, because I feel like, why would he go to United when he's already at PSG and he could challenge for a Champions League trophy at PSG? But, you know, if they really break the bank for him, I think they could get him, and he would be the perfect player either to replace Pogba and put him right next to Matic, or let him play alongside Pogba, and it would just give you 3 very different players in Matic, Verratti, and Pogba. Another person that I looked at was Julian Weigl, who hasn't had the best of seasons this year, but looking at him, he's only 22 years old, and his stock is down right now, so it would be the perfect time to get him. And similar to Verratti, he could play either alongside those 2 midfield players in Pogba and Matic, or he could play in that deep-lying playmaker role, but he's another player that I really rate highly. And for me, you know, when Dortmund were really not challenging for the title a few years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, not challenging for the title, but at least making a push, he was their standout player. And with Dortmund kind of struggling and kind of going through a transitional phase and bringing in different managers, maybe it's best for Weigl to move on and go to a bigger club. And I feel like Manchester United could be the best option. I think Mourinho could mold him into an even better player, because I feel like he really excels with those types of players. Next, I want to move on to Miralem Pjanic, who is in the prime of his career. In just a few days, he's going to turn 28, and he's one of the most underrated players in world football. I mean, you just look at what he's done with Juve ever since he came from Roma. The past few seasons in Serie A, he's really been he's kind of pushed it into an extra gear, pushed it to a different gear, I mean, and just looking at the Champions League campaign last year, he's one of their standout players, and he was kind of brought in as the replacement for Pogba, and you could even say that he's been just as good or even better than Pogba in that time. He is kind of different from these other players because he does tend to kind of explode sometimes and just go up, and he does get his goals. I think he has 6 or 7 goals this season. So he is that type of player. He's very good at set pieces. And finally, I want to move on to, I think, the perfect player. Easily the most underrated player in world football, and a lot of people who don't watch Serie A don't really know how good this player is, and I felt that if Ventura used him more in qualification, Italy wouldn't be in the position that they were in at the end of it. But Jorginho is just a different class. For me, Napoli are a team that's probably the most entertaining in the world to watch. Maurizio Sarri plays a very exciting brand of football, but not just that, they're also very good defensively, especially this season as they're pushing for the title, and probably the first team in 6 or 7 years to really challenge Juve for that Serie A trophy. Jorginho, for me, is their standout player. And Jorginho is the type of player, just like these other players, he could sit right next to Matic and dictate play, or he could play alongside them. And I think he would be the perfect player to unlock Pogba's potential, because he does, you know, what a lot of players don't do. He does the dirty work, but he also has some fantastic vision. He does rack up those assists. I think he is primed for a bigger move, and I think Manchester United could be that place. So tell me what you guys think of this whole Pogba dilemma. And tell me about the different replacements that I've brought to the forefront. Do you think that Verratti, Jorginho, Pjanic, or Weigl would be good replacements? Or tell me why they wouldn't be good replacements. Please like, share, and subscribe to Rosie TV. I'm safe, and thank you for watching.